So over the past few weeks, we've looked at the entrepreneurial mindset, the forms of entrepreneurship, the nature and importance of entrepreneurship, and more importantly, delving into what social enterprise is about and the sort of differences between social enterprise and normal or for-profit entrepreneurship. So we've got a few people in here. Has anybody got any questions that they want to ask, or Kira, you've said always
about raining in Brisbane.
in Brisbane. Always about this time of year. It seems to rain over Easter. Always. I don't think I've had an Easter without rain. So if there are no questions, maybe just a discussion on your interpretation of how you see using entrepreneurship in what you're doing. Alexis, you want to give us your views?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. I usually have difficulties with this. So my research is around ambulance response to falls in residential aged care facilities. So from an entrepreneurship, it kind of, I can't see the linkage. However, from a personal perspective, I've had a cake business for many, many years, and it's really opened my eyes to what I could have done a lot better in the early stages to improve the outcome. So I'm gaining a lot from it. I am finding it challenging, though. I am finding it very challenging.
In what way challenging?
Just because it's foreign to me. I'm not sure that I have an entrepreneurial head on my shoulders. So I'm learning a lot from it. So it's been useful. I did pose a question just in quiz 2. I've tried and have been unable to get the 100%. I did send an email, but I don't know where it's gone, who it's gone to. But I keep doing it and I keep coming up with the same answers. So
okay, I'll make a note and I'll go and have a look at your responses and see where you're going wrong. And then I'll send you a message somehow.
Awesome, thank you.
Quiz 2. So I suppose the relevance is more around understanding in your research case what the problem is. So it's that, which is kind of valid for you, because if you're talking about falls in the ambulance services, what causes them? And we make assumptions that, maybe they're old age, they've got dementia, they have got neurodegenerative issues and those sorts of things. But is there some sort of systematic issue could it be something else? So it's essentially just helping you to put aside your assumptions and really look at what the problem could possibly be. Is there something else that is causing it?
Yeah, so I guess we're looking at the reasons behind there being such a high contact with people who fall within the RACFs, and what potential moving forward, what we can potentially implement to decrease the usage.
Yeah. So it's the same process as if you were setting up a business. You would go and look at what are the problems that you're solving for that particular cohort of people, and then work to solutions to solve that problem. So it's that iterative process, and it's going and talking to lots of people and asking questions to really get to the root cause, and then look at what the current solutions are. What are they doing to mitigate those issues now? And then could you put something in place that could do a better job? Cool. Excellent. So I've made a note to check your quiz 2 and see where you're going wrong. Kira, do you want to pop in and have a chat?
Sure, why not? Um, yeah, I'm kind of the same minded, Alexis. Not I'm learning a lot through this because I never really thought of myself as very entrepreneur minded. Um I guess for me in my research, I noticed that there are a lot of gaps which I think could probably benefit from some more entrepreneurship and thought in that kind of area, because it's really the main issue is that nobody knows or understands, like, at all.
So what is your research area?
So I'm looking at parasites in Australian wildlife. And so from talking to my supervisors, obviously, I've got my supervisors who are parasitologists, who focus solely on parasites, but I'm trying to incorporate it into an ecology kind of mindset and a conservation mindset. And from talking to them, nobody really thinks about the implications that parasites have on a larger scale, like on the ecology or on the whole ecosystem, which is really funny to me because it's the first thing that popped into my head.
So you're probably more of an entrepreneurial thinker than you thought you were. And academics generally get lost in the weeds of their own area of expertise. And what's interesting is that you're looking elsewhere. And there's quite a lot to be gained from looking at completely different bodies of knowledge and seeing if it applies to what you're trying to understand. So, for example, my supervisor looked to ecology to understand how entrepreneurs think. So he calls himself an ecologist, but he actually studies entrepreneurship.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that connection.
Yeah, so yeah, it is quite odd. And his writing I enjoyed it and was interesting. But yeah, if you can think of a different context or a different way that what you're doing could have some relevance, that would be that problem-solving entrepreneurial mindset thinking.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because then it just comes down to like actually working out what is needed, and I think because I'm very early into this, I think with the years to come, it might become more obvious, and there definitely is a way that to develop something. It's just a matter of what.
Well, if you think of the whole human biome and how that's evolved, or the knowledge has evolved over the last 20 years, and they're kind of looking at that as the stomach brain. And I know very little about all of this, but yeah, there's a huge amount of information that's kind of come to light in the last few years that has really changed thinking on that. So it could be that way for you too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's all very fascinating. It's nice to find something new that's just like completely different.
So are there any aspects of this course that you've been able to apply?
I think absolutely. Especially finding out that there are so many different variations on entrepreneurship, because obviously from a very layman's point of view, I always thought of it as, sorry, my dog's going off. I always thought of it as a business. So like you do it to gain money. And for me, that's never really been a thought process, So finding out that you can absolutely do it like anything social works as that as well, which is really fascinating. And I've been delving into that quite a bit.
And maybe long term you'll be able to commercialize your research and make some money off it anyway.
Yeah, well, that would be positive.
Yeah, But yeah, there's different flavors of entrepreneurship, and it's something that is useful across all areas of life.
Yeah.
Or I find. Thanks, Kira.
No, thank you.
Jackson Lee. I'm just picking randomly on people here. Sean C. Nope, don't want to talk to me.
Yeah,
There you are.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Good. So I'm a EdD student, as you can see from the title.
Yep.
My project, I'm just in my first year, is basically around emancipatory entrepreneurship for second generation refugees. So the concept being around learning entrepreneurial agency, and then using that to basically rise above discrimination, the things that are the sort of constraints in the ecosystem that they're in that are holding them back. So particularly looking at second generation refugees rather than first, because the research I'm finding is they deal with different issues than their parents do as the first generation coming through.
Very much so.
And so looking at it from an educational perspective, so at least where I'm going at this stage is to my data collection will be around talking to second generation refugees that are post secondary school or even post tertiary education, and getting them to do a retrospective and say, well, dig into confirming what I know, what I've come up with around enablers and constraints in the environment, and then try and find, hopefully looking at people that have gone through specific entrepreneurial education programs, and then seeing, did they help them? Were they specific enough? And my assumption at this stage is, we have these entrepreneurship education programs that some schools, for example, in South Australia, there's hubs of these schools. You can get the programs like youth change agents that have them as well. But I'm looking at whether they are specific enough for the issues that refugees face. It's not necessarily language, but there's whole lots of things like
Culture.
Particularly, culture, but also things like particularly where it's what we call forced refugees. So the parents have actually taken the family out of a really dangerous environment, and there's a feeling of obligation from the kids to pay the parents back. Now, that's not necessarily something your standard entrepreneur is going to come up against.
No. And also, it'd be interesting to see from one generation to the other, a lot of that first generation have like a lot of necessity entrepreneurship, where they're having to start something or do something because they've had to, their skills aren't valid here or whatever, for whatever reason, whether that carries over.
Yeah, there is definitely some work done around entrepreneurial transmission per se, but it's that the sort of drivers around necessity change. There's the drivers are different, but and that's what I'm still trying to get my head around. There's not a lot. There's quite a bit of a gap in the literature in this area. We have plenty of stuff done on that necessity entrepreneurship, absolutely. But when it goes to the children, not so much.
No. And the other thing that you'd have to consider is the lag effect of entrepreneurship education. So they might do a course at uni or at high school or whatever, and we see it here in our entrepreneurship area, where they might have a taste of entrepreneurship, but they don't really, because they don't understand what problems are worthy of solving, they kind of put it to the back burner. And then when they go get jobs or get into industry, they realize that there are now problems worth solving and come back to entrepreneurship. Exactly. And how do you measure that?
Yeah, and that's so there's going to be definitely, I'm hoping to use the contacts into schools and providers of entrepreneurial education to give us access to their sort of graduated students. but then also looking, particularly focusing on those students, be they in their 20s or 30s, that are doing some sort of entrepreneuring. And I'm keeping a reasonably broad definition of what that is. So it may be that they're full-time employed in standard employment, but they've got a side project going on.
Or they could be entrepreneurs within that organization. So how could you measure that?
Yeah. See, I've got a background in entrepreneurship, so I'm a late in life teacher. But before that, I've done startup companies, technology commercialization, all sorts of stuff related to it. So I've seen entrepreneurship in a whole lot of different forms, being part of it. I was at a meeting last night where there was a number of entrepreneurship educators got together and were talking. So it's just interesting to see how they are trying to roll it out in Australia. And how they're defining it as well. Yeah, there was some of them talking that really it was, I don't know whether I would have called it entrepreneur. It was inquiry-based learning, absolutely. So it's sort of, again, it's definitional as well, right? Which we saw in that first part of the course. There's some very broad definitions.
Very much so. And different flavors, there's so much variety to it across everything. Cool. Your research sounds really cool. I look forward
exciting.
to.
I'm very passionate about it. So
I can see. It'd be good to see what the outcomes are and what you discover.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Jackson, you've said hello. I'm presuming that you don't have a camera or microphone, maybe? Unless you want to pop in. Anyone else? Louise? Do you want to let us know what you're doing? Mehedi? I'm in the library, so I can't speak aloud. No, that's not a problem. Anybody else who'd like to pop in and have a chat about what they're doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Mehedi.
Hello. Actually, I can share my video.
Yeah.
You will understand. So actually, I'm a PhD student and I'm doing a PhD in Charles Sturt University, data science, and I'm attending this presentation because I have a plan to have a entrepreneurship organization, like having my own IT firm. That's why I was thinking that this session will help me to gain some knowledge.
And has it helped you?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
I hope in the next sessions I will get a lot of information, a lot of knowledge about how to become a successful entrepreneur.
And what is your area of research?
I'm doing research on fake news analysis, fake news detection.
Fake news. Oh, wow, that's topical.
Yeah.
Okay, and what you've learned thus far, how is that helping you?
Like the fake news detection on my research.
Has it helped you at all? What you've learned in the entrepreneurship module?
I think to become an entrepreneur, this is not helping much, but I just have a plan that in future maybe I will have my own IT firm. I will make some job to help some people, or I will have my own company, so I want to have any boss. Yeah.
Is that what attracts you to entrepreneurship, that you won't have a boss?
Yeah.
Is there
sometimes I think about some idea that I can go through.
And is there any chance that you'd be able to commercialize your research?
Commercialization, I'm not thinking about that right now.
Okay, because that is an option that you can consider depending on which way your research goes. That is there some part of your research that you can commercialize into a business down the road?
At this stage, I don't have any specific plan about that.
Mhm.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe in future I could have some plan on that.
Maybe I planted a seed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mahedi. Where are you studying?
Charles Sturt University, Wagga Wagga campus. I'm living in Wagga Wagga now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I looked at the students, the sort of representation of students who are doing this course, I've got connections to 3 of the institutions. So I did my undergrad and my honors at Charles Sturt University. I did my PhD at QT, and I lived in South Africa, where KwaZulu-Natal University is, which is one of the universities here. So I kind of feel like I'm at home with all of you.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks, Mahedi.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Jackson, I understand that you in the library, you can't speak, but you want to give us a brief overview in the chat, if possible. And Louis, maybe you too. And is there anybody else that would like to come on and have a chat or have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Masha, are you able to share maybe your examples how you were successful in linking research and entrepreneurship? Because always the stories from life and successful stories give them a lot of inspiration and ideas to others.
Yep. So I have started my own businesses in the past, and I kind of used that framework of what I did to start those businesses when I was doing my PhD. So kind of the same motivation and the same drivers, if that makes sense. Is that what you asking?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So understanding from a PhD point of view, understanding what problems were sort of significant in the area of research, and kind of reframing those problems to make sure that I had addressed all assumptions. So that was part of the process that I went through. And then looking at synthesizing the research and using the same process to come up with I came up with solutions for a business to sort of come up with the outcomes for my PhD. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And
Okay.
do you want to share any details of your maybe businesses? Or is it too much?
I think they're pretty much all in the introductory videos. I spoke about them then.
Yeah.
I see Jackson has said, I'm researching solar panel recycling, working with an industry partner. That's really interesting because a lot of the state governments in Australia have put up solar panel schemes to have cheaper solar panels. So there's like a rollout of solar, but I would imagine in 10 years time, we're all going to be replacing our solar panels. And then what happens to them, which is going to be a big problem and a big waste area. So it'd be interesting to see what you come up with, Jackson. How far are you along? 1 year in. And what is going to happen to these piles and piles of solar panels? How are you going to recycle them? Any ideas? You're working on it. I mean, there's so much opportunity there, I think, from an entrepreneurship point of view to create something new with that waste, if you have the right knowledge to do that. Anybody else? Excellent. I'm conducting research on how to design, implement, and evaluate learning analytics dashboards that allow monitoring the achievement of student learning outcomes in higher education institutions. I consider that entrepreneurship is applicable in my field of study because the implementations and interventions that can be carried out result in products adjusted to the specific needs of the institutions, and that can truly help in making decisions based on data. That's really interesting, Louise. So a learning analytics dashboard. So is that for students to access to understand their learning outcomes better, or and then I suppose the back end, the institution would be able to look at that data as well. That sounds really interesting. Thank you for sharing. So coming up in the next couple of weeks, I'm just pulling up the modules here. Creativity, ideas, and innovation. So something that I've been practicing for a long time and used particularly in my PhD was daily doodling. So I don't know if you've ever heard of doodling and or seen people do a sort of have a doodling practice, but essentially what I do is every single day I draw little things. So it might be something that I see every day. It might be the food on my plate. It might be my dog, whatever. But I find that when my brain is stuck, that daily doodling allows me to unlock, and it helps me to connect the dots. So towards the end of my PhD, I really put that into practice and used it to, while I was synthesizing the data, to just drawing random things, but it really did make a difference. And I do it on a regular basis. So try it, give it a try. And next week we will talk about creativity and its impact on innovation. And I do think that a daily doodling practice will help you to be more creative, to sort of unlock that creativity aspect. And Louis has said, I'm currently more focused in the dashboard that teachers and faculty members could interpret and analyze to make decisions for the improvement of their courses and programs. Yeah, there's not a huge amount of feedback once courses are deployed at university level, other than direct student feedback. There isn't a lot of background data that we can really use, is there? So that would be worthwhile. Has anybody here tried doodling or anything similar? No? Nobody have any questions? Santha, you've been quiet in the background. Have you got anything to add? Well, if there are no more questions, unfortunately not today, so no worries. If nobody has any more questions, I think we'll sign off for today. No worries, Kira. Good to meet you all. Toodles.
And behind you, somebody's coughing.